We're live, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to This Week in Real Estate, hosted by yours truly. My name is Ray. And this is going to be a fun week. If you don't know, I got to visit with the National Association of Realtors last week. And that is what probably the majority of the show is going to be about today. I got invited to HQ. And yes, I was a little concerned at first. I didn't know exactly. So I'm going to have all the tea about that meeting today. You don't want to miss it. We're going to do that right off the jump. And we're also going to get into Compass, Redfin, and that whole situation. And NAR has a response to it. So we're going to get into NAR's response to what's happening with the MLSs and that. And then if we have time, we're going to cover some economic news, and it might be a economic lightning round at the end of the show, talking about all the stuff that's happened. But yeah, that's where we are. We may have to get into some of the more deeper stories a little bit more next week. But thanks everyone for joining. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and of course on Clubhouse. So if you want to add your voice to the podcast, just find us in Clubhouse in the Real Estate Networking Club. And then we're the only one broadcasting in there right now. I think we're the only one broadcasting in there right now, week after week. You can add your comments to the show, and I can display your comments and talk about you, or I could just talk about your comment. There is Matt Lamar saying, spill the tea. Yeah, normally during this show I have coffee, but today I'm definitely going to be sipping on the tea. Elizabeth Nightingale said, who looks more shocked in this photo? Ray or the happy campers at NAR? What photo is she talking about, you ask? It's this one right here. It's our thumbnail. There you go. Oh, wait, I got to remove your comment so everybody can see it. There it is. So that is the crew that I got to meet with. That's actually everyone that spoke. I think it's everyone that spoke while we were there. So pretty fun. Now I got to remove it. So I have to go back here and click there. Okay, there it is.
How many other participants, Ray?
So there were like seven of us that got to go. And it was they called it an influencer summit, and they admitted that was for lack of a better term. So here's what happened to catch up some of you, like, why is Ray going to NAR headquarters last week? They released something called the annual report. Do y'all remember the NAR annual report? And you remember what I said about the NAR annual report? I basically said, guys, this is a lot of corporate dribble. And we actually had my AI, which was critical of everything I write. I trained that AI to be very critical, and it did its job and was very critical of the National Association of Realtors annual report. Despite there being, ringing, we want to change. We just didn't see a ton of like exactly what those changes were. And so I admitted, like, guys, what's actually changing here? It doesn't sound like anything. It just sounds kind of same. And I think that was the same show where we were talking about some MLSs departing from their local boards, and how a lot of agents would not be a member of the National Association of Realtors if it wasn't for the local MLS. So the next morning, I got an email that said, hey, Ray, we would like to invite you to the National Association of Realtors headquarters in Chicago. So I was like, okay. Is Ray in trouble?
The mothership called you home.
Yeah. So it was, that was interesting. And I was surprised. So I told them I would come. And I kind of said it with like, I was excited to go because, hey, this is an opportunity to share with them the stuff I've always wanted to share with them, right? So I'm excited, but I'm not excited to be like a mouthpiece of NAR, right? I didn't want, like, I'm not coming up there so you can convert me and make me like super NAR guy. And so I graciously accepted the invitation. It was kind of them to even invite or even think of me. And I was curious if they had actually seen the show and if they had actually heard and understood my positions on a lot of things. And so we booked the flight and everything. I go. What was cool is I called the Real Brokers offices, texted those guys up there in Chicago, and I was like, hey, I'm coming in. And Marty was actually throwing a Further Together event the day before. So I got to go the day before and hang out with the Real Broker crew in Chicago, which was really cool. Got some deep dish pizza. Super important. All right. So then the day of, it didn't get started until like lunch. So I got a lot done. I had to switch hotels and get down there to downtown Chicago, which is a journey in itself. And then I got to walk around for a few minutes and then go to the NAR HQ, which is gorgeous, by the way. And I thought it was like a sliver of a building, like a sale, but that is the Washington, D.C. headquarters. The Chicago headquarters, there's a building beside NAR that kind of has that same look, but the NAR building is like this standalone and has a really cool conference room up top. And so that's where we got to go. So we ate lunch, and it was a little surreal because I've never met all the NAR people. I don't really go to a lot of the NAR conferences because, you guys kind of all know my stance on that. I'm not super friendly with NAR, so why would I be involved in all those politics? And, there's Lawrence Yun there, which, we talk about him on our show all the time because of his economic takes and all that stuff. And I saw a couple of the other NAR staff. What was really funny is you could tell who was NAR staff and then who the quote unquote influencers were, because the NAR staff were all like in really nice suits and everything. And all the influencers were like in, slightly nicer street clothes. Weird, because, a lot of the, podcasters and stuff were never seen. So a couple of names, I guess I could share a couple of names of people y'all might know. The Hustle Humble podcast was there. They're out of Louisiana. Rob Hahn, the notorious ROB, was there. Katie Lance, DJ, man, I forget DJ's last name. He was a nice guy. And then the Next Home co-CEO and host of their podcast was there. I believe his name's Keith. So that was, and Rob Hahn's co-host was there too. I didn't know him very well, but and that was really about it. So I was kind of surprised that there weren't more people there. They had invited some more people, but they couldn't make the dates work or whatever. So, and they do intend to have more of these. So, it started with just a general introduction, and then Nakia Wright, the CEO, right? CEO? Yeah, CEO of NAR, spoke and kind of went through a very abbreviated version of the strategic plan that was in the annual report. And I'll share this tab so you guys can see the thing we went over. It was this over on the left side of the screen. It was the 3 circles, and they talked about industry pressures, organizational constraints, and diverse stakeholder expectations. And she basically went through each of those bullets around the circle, talking about the different pressures and challenges that those groups were putting on NAR to do something. And what struck me about her presentation about this information versus what's in the report is how much more stern she is than what this report says. Scap says, so in other words, NAR spending all our dues on fancy digs. No. I mean, if you're a real estate organization and you don't have a good piece of real estate, that's embarrassing. Come on. Spill the Gatorade. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Tell us about Stern.
So she was extremely efficient. And of the presentations I've heard from her, she was always, pretty gracious and kind, and like, this is what we want to do, and this is where we want to go. And it was more like big picture, but she was very matter of fact. And she was like, look, if we've got 18 to 24 months, if this doesn't change, NAR is going bye-bye. And I'm like, man, that's what me and all of my listeners have been saying. We've been saying that if NAR doesn't change, they're gone. And so I was struck by that. I was struck by the severity and seriousness of which she recognized the issue. And I was struck by her demeanor and how she's dealing with it. In other words, I'm going to definitely rephrase here. This is not a quote she said or anything, but basically ship up or ship out, right? If you're not on board to further the mission of NAR and do it efficiently to where it costs very little, then get out. If you're in a committee that's wasting time, get out. If, and again, I'm definitely rephrasing. She didn't say this exact, but this is how she was going through dealing with all this. So I thought that was right off the jump different than how I thought it would be. Because I really thought it would be like hey guys, thanks so much for coming. This is what we want to share with you as to how we're doing things. But she has definitely turned that organization itself upside down. And she talked about a lot of the challenges with it as she came in. Not everyone was a fan of her within the organization. I know you guys saw the leaks to newspapers and this TV show is effed up, says the real cowboy Dan. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is an effed up TV show. But hey, I appreciate you watching this on your TV and somehow figuring out a way to comment. It's pretty cool. But no, it was interesting to me. Really stern is the best way. Aggressive, you could say aggressive modality in which she is approaching NAR. A lot of the people kind of second guessed her and thought, they didn't think highly of her appointment because they wanted someone else to be there that they kind of knew already, that was a member and part of the organization. But I feel like she was an outsider, and that was a good thing. I didn't feel like she was part of the beast. She just seemed like one of us, to be honest. And that surprised me. That 100% surprised me. So she shared a lot of those thoughts. We had time to ask some general questions. The notes I took on hers was about the 18 to 24 months to make a difference. She says the reason why that is because the immense amount of shock that happened because of the lawsuit would eventually go away and people would no longer feel the need to change. And while that shock is there, they can use that as an opportunity to help change the direction. She said, let's see, I've already gone over the circles. She's focused on building the future member experience or modernizing the association. Those are the two things that everything kind of falls in line with on the categories. I asked, y'all remember this chart? Let me display this. Y'all remember this chart? I asked about this chart. And I said, hey, on this chart, these are things that everyone recognizes are important. And people just kind of go through and mark it. Why did you choose these things? And she said they did tons and tons of focus groups. I forget the number, but it's like 100 and something thousand people that were involved in focus groups. And everything that they had replied with always kind of clumped up in these general items. And so that's why they use these items as, what was important and what they're going to be looking at. And all of these items fall under either modernizing the association or building the future member experience. And there's more depth behind each one of these that, I don't think any of us know. I definitely didn't know. But as they started to explain each one of them, it began to make more sense to me why these were where they are, why they were important. Everything else that's outside of either future member experience or modernizing the association goes bye-bye. They don't even look at it. They don't care about it. It's not something they're even going to focus on. So she shared, let's see, look at the 24 initiatives from the strategic initiatives. They measure what the org is doing against these. So there's 24, I'll show you. There's 24 initiatives. I think they are, I'm finding them in the report right now. Okay. Here they are. The 24 initiatives. Oh, that was the next slide. I should have just shown you the next slide. These are the 24 initiatives, the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 2.1, 2.2. These 24 initiatives is what they measure everything against. If it doesn't hit in any of these 24 initiatives, they don't do anything with it. So she did talk a little bit about their progress last year and where they want to go. But again, my gripe and one of my points of feedback was that Nakia's voice is not in this report. And had her voice been in this report and the severity or aggressiveness of what they were trying to say, I think a lot of us would have appreciated this report. But because her voice was missing behind it and it was cleaned up corporate lingo, a lot of the point was missed, which is why they're having to have these groups of people come in and talk to them. They did 2 groups, I think, of broker owners, big broker owners, where they met at NAR headquarters and they just let them talk. And they went through the feedback, and they're getting these competitors in a room with each other. And they themselves as NAR are trying to be a service. And so they just listened, like, what went wrong? What is the organization doing that you don't like? And are asking all those questions of those brokers and just letting them talk. And she said on more than one occasion there that they appreciate the loud negative feedback because they use it. And that surprised me too. And I should say, before she even got up and spoke, as we were eating lunch and there were staffers and stuff around, there was a staffer named Rafi, who's one of the communications guys, super nice guy. And he said, so are you surprised you're here? I was like, yes, I am surprised I'm here. I said, if you had watched my podcast before you sent the invite, I think you would be surprised I'm here too. He laughed, and I think they did watch. I even asked, like, how did y'all choose who should come here? And he said, well, everyone that is here has been vetted, and we do watch your content, and we know what you've said. I'm like, okay. So
We have a file on you, Ray.
yeah, they got the Ray files. But I was, Rob Hahn and I agree on some of what NAR has done in the past, what they should do in the future. I don't agree with everything he says. I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything I say either. But it was really interesting to me to hear the questions that they're asking and how they're asking those questions. And a lot of us, one of the quote unquote influencers there would ask a question and everyone's like nodding their head like, yes, this is what we hear a lot of. There was no senior vice president of industry relations before she got there. So there was no one contact. There was no one point of contact that like brokers or people could go to. Previously, they would go to Nakia Wright or the CEO. So there was no one point of contact. So they did add that position, and just about everyone in that room was new to the position. Most were new to the organization, and they were all outsiders. She's basically turned over the corporate office to be efficient, run like a business. She was even talking about like some of the applications for various positions where, who are you? And then a paragraph, and people would say, hey, could you hire this person? I know them. And she was like, no, we're not doing any of that anymore. We're going to run this thing right. Scap says, sounds to me, you just accomplished what they wanted, talking positively about NAR to your listeners. This is a great commercial for them. Well, I also went with the preconceived notions gone. I wanted to go with an open mind and say, all right, what are they going to say that could possibly change or convert me? Not much. But I was impressed with how they said what is in this annual report. And like I said, and this was my feedback for them, like she's got to put her voice on this, because if y'all could hear her talk about it, you would say, well, this is what we've wanted. This is what we've been saying. It was a lot of the same feedback that you guys had given me over the years is what she's saying about the organization. And that was strange, that it was unexpected. And I think they understand the seriousness of the issue. The next person that got up was Shannon McGann, and she's the, for lack of a better term, lobbyist. They told us like how they lobby and what they choose to lobby behind, and all the volunteer funds that are given, those can go to support some individual candidates. And they have a spot, I haven't found it yet, but there's some kind of spot on the website where you can go and see who they've supported. But most of the money given to them goes to support issues, not candidates. So if you have an issue, like let's say there's something going on with your housing locally, you can put it on NAR's radar if it's not already, and they will help you fight for the property owner's rights or fight for your rights as an agent in that area. So they did that here locally for us. I can't remember what the full outcome was because it was like 2 or 3 years ago, but that was the first time that I've seen something like that happen. And she says that that's basically what they're accountable to. And they spend they spend $151 million on lobbying that are all going towards local issues. None are going to federal candidates. So I thought that was interesting because I thought they supported more federal candidates than that. But so she talked a little bit about what she did. She seems real nice. She seems like, I've never had a problem with the lobbyist wing of NAR, except for when they got with the hubbub versus Rex and the DOJ and all that kind of stuff, because in my opinion, at that time, they were giving too much money to one party over another, and the other party was kind of lashing out. So it seems like that's been remedied, which, I talked about that last year where it seems different now. And I think that's a lot due to her. But, I got everyone there in the room, the influencers, even the most critical influencers that were there, talked about how the lobbyist part of NAR was one of the most important parts of it. So there wasn't that many harsh questions or anything. What I asked was, is there some kind of like voter guide or tool that they produce that says, hey, here's what these candidates believe on housing? Because that would be super helpful so that we can see what they believe on housing, what they believe on property rights. And they basically said that they don't have that per se, like a scorecard, but you can go to the NAR website and find where they give money and see what clients they support. And that's like the canary in the coal mine. If they're not supporting them, then they have views opposed to property owners' rights. Then the tech guy got up. He's the one that kind of, control is not a good word, but he's the one that has control over stuff like NAR, RPR. And what struck me about this conversation, this was one of the big questions I had. Why does the NAR do a national MLS? That was one of the questions on my note was, if I don't ask this, I'm going to get crucified. Why does the NAR just do a national MLS, have a public facing portal that we can use, and then we can, go from there? So he shared a lot about what the tech does and how they invest their tech. And I don't necessarily agree with, the investment in future tech, but they have had a couple of pretty good investments come out of that, NAR, RPR being probably their best. More people use NAR, RPR than anything else they've ever done. Over 500,000 agents in a 1.5 million member group use NAR, RPRs. That's 30%. That's huge. If you've ever owned a brokerage or had a team, to get 30% of your users to do anything is tough. So about 30% of NAR uses NAR, RPR. And I personally think that that's the best tool. And I've always said that if I wasn't a member of NAR, that would be the thing I miss, is the contracts and RPR. And so one of my questions for them was, why can't, NAR, RPR has all the data from all the MLSs inside of it. And it's so close to just being a consumer portal. Why can't we click a button and now it's all publicly accessible and any leads go to the agent or the brokerage? And the reason is the MLSs. So if they were to turn that on, if they were to just make it public, all the data goes away because of the licensing agreements the NAR has previously signed with MLSs. They said it was like pulling teeth to even give us the tool, NAR RPR, because a lot of MLSs didn't want to play ball. They didn't want to provide sold information. They didn't want to provide, active pending information even in a giant database like that. So if they were to click a button and make a public MLS, or click a button, make a national website for the MLSs, or convert RPR to a public-facing website, all the data that you would be searching for goes away, and those MLSs pull out. Which that's frustrating because, it's been my hope year after year after year that NAR would do something like that, because in that tool, I'd pay double what we pay if we had a tool like that. And so I basically asked, well, what are you going to do instead? There is a deeper partnership coming with Move Inc. Move Inc. has put up a bunch of money to help spread the message of NAR, use a realtor message. And Move Inc. is working more in tandem with NAR to provide that public-facing portal so that NAR can keep the license agreements with the MLSs clean and provide sources like RPR, NAR RPR, and also have a public-facing site that's more integrated with realtors, and that being realtor.com. And I asked, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about how realtor.com is working with MLSs to be more integrated, to where an MLS and NAR can kind of create a more seamless transition from what the real estate agent sees and what the consumer sees. So when you have a client and the agent are working together, they can go to realtor.com, they like a property, and you see it through the MLS. So there's more integration in how they take the MLS information and then apply it to the public instead of just an IDX feed. And so that, when that was announced a couple of weeks ago, I thought that was really interesting. I didn't love it, but that's also because I didn't know about the deeper integration that NAR has with realtor.com. A big reason why they want to do that is because it costs so much money to manage a portal. And it costs so much money in staff and support and all that kind of stuff. And NAR doesn't really want to get into, now we have this basically another company, and the company is a consumer-facing portal. They're basically going to use realtor.com's resources to fund that while they can get the message out, use a realtor, and there's a more integrated, deeper partnership with the MLSs through realtor.com. So that's something to watch. It seemed like that was in its infancy, but it seemed like that was something that they're going to be going a lot deeper with them in. And they said that a lot of members did not like earlier agreements. I don't know if it was agreements or partnerships or what it was, but something earlier that happened with Zillow years ago, there were a lot of members that felt that gave Zillow an unfair advantage and in the portal war. And a lot of people didn't like that. And so this NAR group is trying to kind of correct that and go back to realtor.com, because that, even the word realtor.com advertises realtors over just general real estate agents. There was a question that Rob Hahn had. It's like, well, is that really that important to differentiate us from, real estate agents? Like, who knows a real estate agent that's not a realtor? And they did say that there were like 2.5 million real estate agents in the country, and only 1.5 million of them were realtors. So there is some difference there, but the discussion kind of devolved in, like, I guess it kind of depends on the area you're in. In some areas, it's more prevalent than others. But there was a question like, well, some of those may be builders, or there may be people that are just, licensed to do referrals and things like that. So the question was, how many of them are there actually out there? But I think one of the big competitors that realtors are facing is the do-it-yourselfers. That's about 10% of the population wants to try to do it themselves. And so they're trying to hit people at the moment of decision. Should I use a realtor or should I just use a real estate agent or do this myself? They're trying to encourage them to use a realtor. That was a little disappointing that, in my opinion, it was disappointing that NAR would not, there's no foreseeable way for NAR to have their own portal. But then as we continued to discuss kind of throughout the day, what was happening on the larger scale, Hillary said, so is 1.5 million realtors the current? Yeah, that was the rounded number. That's not the exact number. I think it's 1.4 and some change, but that was the number they referred to. And you're going to RPR classes. Good. I really like the RPR classes. So as the discussion continued to evolve, I guess you could say throughout the day, one of the things that we talked about is what's happening with the local MLSs and the local, Matt Farrell said, drone is on standby above your house. Yeah, I was in the cartel. One of the big topics was, what does a product or service look like from a local board if it's divorced from the MLS? And that is becoming a big problem for a lot of boards around the country. And you're seeing more boards begin to merge together. So I think the future will look like regional boards, and the MLSs are having similar difficulties where a smaller MLS just does not have the tech, does not have the support to give the real estate agents in those towns what they're looking for. And a lot of the regional MLSs are becoming more attractive, or a lot of the bigger city MLSs are becoming more attractive because there's a bigger user base and they have more tools and resources. And so people on smaller cities are already joining those bigger MLSs. And so you may see a lot of MLS mergers happening. There's definitely board mergers happening now, but you may see a lot of MLS mergers also happening to where you have regional MLSs and regional boards in the future. And that could create an environment long down the road where you could have, basically one place for consumers to go. But that's way down the road. Olivier said, we have one board in my province with a few regional offices. Yeah, I think that's going to be more of the future, where there's one main board for a region, there's one main MLS for that region, and I think that's also in part to how real estate's done. It was used to be done so different from town to town, and it's not really that different anymore. And people are searching wider now because, they have cars that could get them more reliably further. So that I think is on the near horizon, and the speed at which those mergers take place is the question. It's not if, but it's when and how fast. And there may be some changes that NAR makes with MLS agreements and things like that could open up some opportunity in the future. But as of right now, that's where it is. Next up was legal. Jonathan Waklowski. And I really liked him. He said, one of the things that shocked me when I got here, and this is a Reaffirms version of what he said. But he said, one of the things that shocked me when I got here is that we still had a working relationship with the firm that lost the Sitzer Bennett lawsuit. He said, so we departed from that in no uncertain terms. Like, finally. And that was if y'all remember a couple of years ago on the show, that group, after they lost, that firm after they lost, was mentioned as doing some more work for NAR. I'm like, why are we still with them? And so he also took that tone. They are definitely a more risk-averse position. And he kind of went through what they did, which, you guys can guess what legal does. And you'd be right. But then I asked, can NAR make a recommendation that is against the vote of the membership? And I use the example of the referral situation where you have NAR delegates that have recommended against disclosing referral fees, when the recommendation from the broader membership body was that we should disclose these referral fees. And the delegates, who the delegate board, I guess it's called, or the delegate committee, they have people like Zillow on the board and multiple members who are affiliated with those type of companies, that it would be against their business interest to disclose those referral fees. And so my question for NAR was, can you make a recommendation that's different from what the body says? Like, can you say, hey, even though you guys said not to do this, as legal, we want you to know that you should probably do that. And that's really not their position. He said basically what they look at is there exposure to NAR in this issue? And he said, we don't think there is as a body, because the risk and the lawsuit would be on broker to broker and company to company. So, which you could say that, well, why didn't Sitzer Burnett do that too? But that in itself was NAR working together. And he said he didn't think that they could show NAR working together for some kind of collusion to create that situation. So that's interesting. They do think that eventually referral fees will be disclosed, and that there's lots of brokerages already kind of taking the lead on that, saying, well, we're going to disclose this anyway, so that you know. So he thinks that the more people that disclose it as a business practice, the more that will change. And then lastly was Bennett Richardson. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because we already covered last week the new ads from NAR, and we got your feedback on that. One of the things I shared with them was some of the feedback y'all shared with me. But I also said that one of the encouraging things for me after seeing those videos is that there was no single voice. You guys, as you gave me that feedback, were all pointing out different small things. And to be honest, that's a huge win. Because if there was like one thing that everyone was pointing at on those commercials where like agents were listening to the floor and in the shower with the water on, everyone was like, this is weird. This is weird. This is strange. This puts down our clients. This is not good. Others in the future or in the past, we've talked about had, similar kind of refrains where everyone was kind of picking up on the same thing. And that didn't exist with this. They played the commercials live for the influencers that are there who hadn't seen it. And there was pretty positive feedback from them. And, there wasn't any like one piece of negative feedback in that room either. So I think overall that's very positive, which kind of sounds crazy, but a lot of the perception of those ads, you're pulling from a huge historic bias. So if you can leave that at the door and look at it for what it is, I think most people would like the ad, but that's really hard to do. And then that was it. Then we hung out a little bit. I went to grab some pizza with the Hustle Humble podcast, and that was fun. And then the next morning left early for here. So that was the meeting with RPR or NAR. Overall, my overall impression of it was I was encouraged that they were also the outsiders. I was encouraged that the stuff we mentioned in the room that we were concerned about, they agreed. There wasn't anything that was brought up where they said, yeah, that's not a problem, or no, that's not really an issue. Here's how we've handled it. Everything that we brought up or talked about, they were pretty much saying, yeah, we agree. And here's what we're trying to do. The ire, I think that most of us look at NAR with, is actually misplaced. And I think we need to turn that where it belongs. And that would be on volunteer leadership, the delegates, and your local board. The $201 given to NAR is not the problem. Now, I know I was never in this group before, but I could tell you my opinion from before was that NAR was a problem. They have really cleaned house, major. And so I feel like the organization itself at the C level and at the head, they're on the right track. They're looking at the things that we've been looking at. They're concerned with the things that you guys mention on the podcast and that you say through Clubhouse, and they're agreeing with us on all of those things. So it's hard for me to rally against them when I'm looking over and they're right beside me. They're like, yeah. Like, well, okay. There is limited power in what they have, because they have to do what the volunteer leadership and the delegates and the membership as a whole wants to do. And that is full of politics. That is full of nepotism. There are major changes to the committees that they've made. There's many committees that are self-selecting themselves out of being a committee. Committees that don't do anything are going to go bye-bye. And there's some announcements coming for all of that and how they're doing that. But that's really going to help clean house. Like, if you're not on the bus, if you're not in the boat and trying to row, get out of the boat. And that's a huge refrain for them. Athena Petaway says, that's good they have cleaned house. I think this transparency is really good. Yeah, they touted a bunch of transparency in the report, in the annual report, but it just did not seem transparent because of the stuff I had mentioned previously. It just seemed like, the same old mindless corporate drivel, which even my AI agreed. But having her words behind it and seeing what they're doing puts a lot more context on those. And now I can look at the report and I can understand what they're saying. But I really want them to release something that has Nakia's voice behind these things that they're trying to do. Because if you hear her, and it's not just like how she says it, but it's the brief, 2-second reason of hey, we're doing this because of this. And that little because of this is a summation of 4 pages of text that they have on the annual report. And that, how she says it, is great. So I like her. I like that she's in position. I feel like she knows what she's doing. I just hope they can figure out a way to communicate it better so that people that are not anti-NAR, but that like NAR so much that they want it to be better, those people they can really reach out to and make a difference. I think the people that are anti-NAR are always going to be anti-NAR, and you're not gonna go for them. So you're just gonna have to leave them. They're gonna leave whenever the MLS is no longer whenever your membership's no longer necessary to be a part of the MLS. They're gonna go bye-bye. You shouldn't even have to be after those people. Who they need to reclaim are the people that are frustrated from NAR because they want NAR to be great. Both Rob Hahn and I kind of agreed on that sentiment and said, the reason why we're frustrated is because NAR is not what it could be. And NAR has kind of lost the vision over the years and has become this other thing. And I feel like Nakia and that group is reclaiming that goal, that vision, and are really trying to make some actual changes. So we will see how it goes in the future. Accountability is huge. And now that they've said all this, and I've heard kind of behind the scenes what that looks like, we're going to definitely be doing our part as members to hold them accountable to what they said. And whenever they skip, whenever they miss, I think it'll be pretty obvious. And we even have a comment from them today on some stuff. They also had a thing. I didn't realize how many times NAR had said no comment in the past, but it was a lot. So now they're commenting on everything. There's no more no comments. So their goal last year was no comments, and they had 0 no comments last year. And sometimes they have to give, something kind of political, be on both sides of an issue, but they're at least not doing no comment anymore. So there it is. That's what happened last week. I'm alive. I made it through. Elizabeth Nightingale said, Ray, you have a talent stating things we feel and are thinking as well. I'm so glad. I'm glad you were called to the big house, the big house. Well, thank you. I'm, the reason why they asked me to be there is because there's an audience. So it's because of you guys. It's because y'all tuning into the show and listening to the podcast and the downloads and, the comments and the video and the clubhouse. All of that is what encouraged them to say, oh, we should get Ray here. So I just want you to know I appreciate y'all. And, thank you for watching, being part of the show, being a part of the podcast over on Clubhouse, making comments, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be there either. So,
Hey, Ray.
Yeah, Jack.
I mean, just this, organic way of communication that they came up with is genius, because they've never had a real way to get their message out to the masses. And by having you half dozen people there and talking about it so much this week and keeping them accountable is genius. And and I've seen, I've heard first and second hand over the years from different leadership. I mean, we've had to clean house before for different reasons.
Yeah.
But everybody that comes in, just sort of the square peg goes into the square hole. And things that I've heard in the past is that, even a great idea that starts at the top goes through the corporate gin mill and just gets stomped on and either tossed out or reworked to something that doesn't look like it started out as. And if this is the new approach to NAR, man, they'll get my dues next year.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying about accountability, what this group sees is potentially their limited amount of time. And so if they don't put things in place that will hold them accountable outside of the organization, then after 18 to 24 months, it all kind of becomes the same as it was. But by even having us there, and they said they want to do more in the future, and they said I was invited back, so we'll see. But by having more of these in the future and kind of updating us, hey, this is what we said we were going to do, this is what we did, then they're putting in place accountability outside of the organization that's in the critical parts of the membership that will hold the next group accountable too. And I think they see that. I think they see that, like, hey, we can't just do this in here. We have to get the brokers. So they got all the brokers, like all the big brokers, they got all the CEOs and presidents and those brokers in the same room and told them this is what we want to do, because that outside pressure, that outside force puts pressure on them to stay changed, even if the leadership there has changed, even if Nakia, for some reason, is no longer CEO, or Bennett's no longer the marketing guy. The outside forces that they're putting on themselves for that pressure will still kind of keep the mission or vision at the forefront. And that's really smart. So the way they're going about it is encouraging. And to see them totally clean house is encouraging. And now the next part is for members to not be lazy and to actually, contact your local board and say, what does it look like for you to provide services to agents, or what's the product of the local board if it's not awards and the MLS? What is it? What are you going to be doing? What's the education actually look like? How are you going to be taking this serious? Because that's the panic right now that the local board has. And that's the opportunity that real estate agents have right now to get involved in their local board and actually help it to become what it was meant to become from the first place. Without the local board, the local issues that you're trying to find in housing is almost impossible. So you need the local board for the advocacy and the lobbying ability, but you also need the local board because a lot of us are complaining about education and how real estate agents don't know what they're doing. And the big brokerage mills that are just churning people out, those agents have no idea when they get involved in a transaction. Those things the local board can help solve. But if the local board's not doing anything, then that's a problem you have to take up with the local board. The National Association is only going to be as good as your local board on that level. So we need, as I figured out through asking the question, why don't we have a National Association website where people can go search for a house? I found out that the actual buyer there is the MLSs. And until the MLSs can kind of figure this out, then we will never have a place like that. So in the meantime, NER is going to be using realtor.com to do that. So I agree with you, Jack. I think it's encouraging. If they continue, that's encouraging. But also, what I gathered from the meeting is that there's way more to do on the volunteer committees, the delegates, and the local boards. And they can't do that themselves. They have to have active participants. And it's crazy for them to invite the harshest, quote unquote, harshest critics of NAR to their headquarters. But what was crazier to me is that they agreed with us. I mean, think about that for a minute. We're going to invite these huge critics that are speaking out against us actively and vocally, and we're going to tell them what we believe, and it happens to correlate. That's encouraging. So, what are your thoughts? What are your questions? If you want to know if we talked about something specific, we probably did. I've got a lot of notes, but they didn't allow us to record or video. That's going to be my feedback for next time too. Like, I mean, if you have an influencer summit, one of our biggest things that we can do for you is to video and record it. So it would be really helpful to have the whole thing videoed and recorded. Jack, you asked something. I think it was you that asked something about Lawrence Yune's 14% growth prediction, where housing sales, I believe it's housing sales, will grow by 14%. He explained why, and that was interesting. Basically, the last 3 years have been really low in sales. And if you increase 14%, you're still not at what you were pre-COVID. And so his thinking is a small increase makes a large percent increase. So if the rates do go down, and if inventory begins to recover, there's more supply, if all the government cutting of red tape and everything actually happens, then there should be an increase in supply, which would keep home prices stable. And if rates drop, then affordability increases and more people should be jumping into the market, which would lead to that 14% increase in sales. But even with a 14% increase in sales, you're still 17% off of what was normal pre-COVID. And right now we're below what we were below during the crash. So he said it's got to recover sometime, and he thinks it will happen quicker rather than slower. So that's where that 14% number came from. I think that was all the other questions. Oh, this was a funny haha moment. Bennett made the whole pitch about the new marketing campaign. He talked about where they would be putting that. And I've got a graph. Let's see if it's I don't think the graph is in the annual report, but I took a picture of a slide. Shh, don't tell him. I was hoping to get my hands on the slides, but I do not have the slides. I'm going to try to find the picture of the slide I took so you can see. But he went through where they were going to be putting all of this information. And I'm going to have to send this slide photo to myself real quick. They're basically not putting it anywhere that they can't measure. So everything measurable is where the slide is, where the marketing campaign is going to go. So here it is. Let me send it to myself. That way I can, okay. So he made the whole pitch. He went through the whole plan, and then they opened it up for questions. And, I'm a big fan of marketing, period. So I got to ask, what's the best way for me to display this on the screen? Hang on. Let's go to media assets. I'll upload it as an image. Yeah, that's what we'll do. All right, media assets. Oh man, it's the wrong type of image. All right, I'm going to have to unshare my screen and share my screen. That's what I'll do. Remove. Bear with me, I am a professional. And window, there it is. All right, here it is. So this is the reach graphic. media mix graphic. So only 3% would be out of home. 39% is connected TV. So connected TV are the ways that like Hulu, Netflix, stuff like that people can like click on and have a result. Partnerships is only 3%. Paid search is only 9%. Paid social and influencer. I need paid social influencer. I'm not being paid. Paid social and influencer marketing is 21%. Streaming audio is 11%. And online video is 14%. Connected TV is the biggest portion at 39%. So they really want to focus on the results, right? If they put out this ad, what is going to happen at the end of that ad? Did it result in a click? Did it result in a, somebody coming through? So that was a big thing for them. So at the end of his pitch, I said, well, all this is well and good, but what if we had a 3D logo? And that was funny. We laughed. Everyone laughed. So that was a funny moment. And then I asked my honest question, which was, something about the videos and, kind of how the videos showed the real estate agent as the hero. And they said they tested that and it worked really well. And my question to them was, building a story brand says that the consumer should be the hero. So is there a different take on that, or is there a bent on that may work? And they said that they did think about that. That was part of their consideration, but what they tested, these worked better in the testing. So that was the answer to my question. All right. Rick said, that was me, Ray. If we sold 4 million in 2025, isn't he saying that we should sell 4.56 million in 2026? If that's 14% of 4 million, then yes. Can't do the math that fast, Rick, putting me on the spot. But yeah, I believe you are correct in that. That's not a huge jump, and it's still 17% from what normal is. Someone 71% of realtors did not sell a home in 2025. I know. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. There is a large portion of realtors that are referral only. There's also a large portion of realtors that are on a team. So there's, that's probably a little less than that, but yeah, there's still a lot of membership they're not really doing the thing. Let me go back to Clubhouse so I can see you guys. So there you go. All right. What's up, Mike? All right. Anything else you want to ask or say about the meeting with NAR before we move on to a little bit of Compass news? And then we are going to have to rapid fire the industry stuff, just so it's not too long of a pod. Skep says, Dear NAR, if you're listening today to this show, can you help appraisers out? I would be willing to pay you. I thought appraisers had a really good thing going where your people weren't really, they kind of left you alone, right? Don't you get left alone?
You were so like on Mars right now. If that's what you think, like not even close. We don't have crap. I mean, the fact that NAR called you in because of your show and the fact that they're listening is absolutely fantastic. So applause to you, clap, but you know what? Appraisers don't have to crap. And we have the Appraisal Institute, which is like probably the redhead stepchild of what NAR is. So, I mean, it's ridiculous what we have. So, hey, NAR, if you're listening, I am willing to talk to you about appraisers and we can work something out here.
You know what? One of the interesting things was they talked about NAR's lobby. And there was a really cool graphic that counted over time, like how much money from NAR is going to lobbyists versus other housing organizations and how much they spend on lobbying. And it showed this, gigantic increase in NAR spending money on lobbyists and housing rights and things like that. And some people are going to look at that and say, wow, they shouldn't be spending that much money. But what it also showed was all of the other organizations that started as consumer advocacy groups or realtor advocacy groups it was just going down and down and down. And the amount of money they spent in order to make sure people had housing rights. And I didn't see appraisers on the list, Scap, but there was
Well, why would you see appraisals on the list? I mean, there's nothing out there. That's the whole point of this. It's like I love a lot of what NAR does, and again, you've talked on the show a lot of what they don't do and what they can do and what they do. But at least you guys have something that's like there to kind of like guide you and support you in certain things. And while it may not be all great all the time, at least you guys are getting your voices heard and you're having something out there. Appraisers, I mean, honestly, it's laughable because we have nothing, and we try to get things together, and yet it just never. It's just laughable to me. But I mean, I would love for NAR to be able to work maybe together with appraisers and do something because look, I mean, in reality, and maybe a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of appraisers with certain MLSs are now members of NAR by being a member of that MLS.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not one of them, but a lot of appraisers are. So if that's the case, that an appraiser in certain states or certain MLSs are part of NAR, then why aren't you helping us out? Like, why aren't you like helping us with some advocating or things of that nature? So, I mean, it's kind of weird in that sense that, some are, some aren't, but hey, come on, help us out here a little bit.
I might be mistaken, Scap, but they could be like our MLS. Our MLS has a vendor membership, which is different and separate from a board membership. So they can join as a vendor, as someone that works in housing or works with housing. And just the same as like a termite guy could too. If the termite guy is tired of meeting people out at houses to get keys, they can just join the board or join the MLS and get access to the super key and all that.
Yeah,
so,
that's how mine is here in Georgia. I'm a member of Georgia MLS and FMLS, but at least with Georgia MLS, I mean, I get my super key access, full access, and everything. But I'm there as a housing expert under them. I'm not a member of NAR, which is fine with me. But I think that you kind of got to figure out what's what here.
Yeah. Here's someone asked to prove it. They said, prove it. You were actually there. Prove it. Here, look at this. I got a document. National Association of Realtors Influencer Summit agenda.
Did you steal an ashtray?
There were no ashtrays, no smoking in that nice office.
Nothing from Lamarche?
No,
Matt, you got nothing here?
Nothing.
It's like the din of silence. Would you just fall asleep?
That's right. Where are you, Lamarche? I thought surely you'd be voicing your Engel and Volkler opinion up in this. Maybe he's on the golf course. You know those luxury agents. Let me make sure there's nothing I'm leaving out here before we move on.
No. Hey, Ray. Matt's not on the golf course. It's a Wednesday. He's not on the golf course. Just let you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess that was pretty much it. Overall, it was a good meeting. I think it was good for them. I think a lot of the critics came away saying, "Hey, they're critics too," and that's very comforting. Had I gone there and it was like the same corporate drivel that's in the annual report, and like, "Hey, we're great, and this is everything we're doing. Why are you guys hate us so much?" I would have been really concerned, really, really concerned. But when you go there as a critic, Rage Against the Machine. And they're like, "Yeah, us too." I'm like, what? Huh? That's super comforting. We'll see. Before we get into the next part, oh wait, there is a comment over here. What state are you guys in? State of disbelief. It's state. No, I am in Arkansas. All these other people are around the world. We don't have Howard today. He usually makes us international. We do have Olivier, so we are international today. We're international listening today. The number 16 news podcast in Taiwan currently. So,
hey, Ray, thank you, man. This start to finish, this whole thing was awesome, and I'm glad you get a seat at the table.
Yeah, thank you. I think I only got that seat because of you guys, so I really appreciate y'all. And if you hate this, if you're like, man, I hate this show, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so that you can hate on it live. So that is a key. Your hate is useless if you're not even sharing it. If you're just, keeping it inside, don't do that. Let it out. Put it in the comments. And let's move on to, we got some news. Compass. This is interesting. Compass, as we know, has partnered with Rocket. Okay. Rocket, which has also merged with Redfin. So Red Rocket and Compass are together. And Scap says, so let's keep making comments on NAR so Ray keeps getting invited for more fun. Yes. Yes. Keep sharing your opinions. Honestly, anytime they do anything that you guys don't like, don't hesitate to blow me up on it, which I know, I don't even have to ask y'all to do that because that's the tenor of the podcast is that we, speak truth to power type of thing. Speaking of speaking truth to power, let's talk Compass. Compass and Rocket partner to expand listings on Redfin. What? So Compass International Holdings and Rocket Companies just announced a 3-year strategic alliance, only 3 years, that could materially shift where buyers see inventory. Under the agreement, Compass coming soon listings will immediately appear on Redfin, with private exclusive properties to follow. The companies say the move has potential to bring more than 500,000 additional listings to Redfin. Okay. I just want to break down what they're doing. We know from the clear cooperation policy that any coming soon listings have to be listed in the MLS within 24 hours. But now, due to the exclusive thing on MLS, they don't have to be public until the seller is ready. We also know that Compass is currently allowed to have private exclusive listings available to their agents and brokerage only, because that is allowed by the clear cooperation policy, and they can keep those hidden from the other agents in the marketplace. And that is 100% allowed and legal. What they're doing now is different, because now they're saying our coming soons will hit Redfin. I'm assuming that they will also be listed in the MLS privately and follow the local MLS rules. But this other part, the private exclusive properties to follow, that's the part that is going to create the lawsuit. Because currently, NAR has a clear cooperation policy that states that if anything is marketed publicly, it must be listed in the MLS within 24 hours. And I believe it has to be public in the MLS. I could be wrong, and this is where I would love for some of you scholars to double check here. But I believe that once you market it publicly, you have to make it public in the MLS. You can't keep it private in the MLS anymore. But what Compass wants to do is to have private exclusives that are not listed on the MLS, because then the MLS feeds it to Zillow and other websites. So this is interesting. It's hard to see how they're going to land. Here's what Refkin says. We believe listing agents should be connected directly with interested buyers, and sellers should have the freedom to list their homes in a manner and method they choose without the fear of misleading insights that damage its value. Now, our real estate professionals can give sellers the choices they deserve with an increase in exposure to 60 million potential buyers. The Rocket CEO said, when barriers are removed and supply grows, affordability improves. Today's challenge is friction in the home buying process and lack of inventory. By bringing search, agents, and financing into one of the connected platform, we can move more sellers into the market, reduce complexity. Following its merger with Anywhere Real Estate in January, Compass International Holdings now includes brands such as Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's International Realty, Century 21, Better Homes and Gardens. That is now under scrutiny again, by the way. And we talked about that last week, how the DOJ seems to be taking another look at it. Was it the DOJ or a different group? Maybe the FCC. I don't know. Anyway, somebody that looks over mergers taking another look at it. my question, according to Redfin, this allowance is not about keeping listings off the MLS. Listings in Redfin are publicly marketed in compliance with the MLS rules and platform. So I don't totally understand. If, and this is where Compass kind of, I feel like this is a partnership out of frustration and not from business model, because it doesn't fully make sense with what they're saying they want in the business model. They like not having a Zillow's estimate by these properties that are coming soon. But the business model is, the private exclusives are for people that don't want their home marketed publicly, but they want to be on the market and they want other agents to be interested, not just Compass agents. So we want to have a private exclusive deal where agents can see what is available. But what this is, by putting the private exclusives on Redfin, then how are they private and how is it exclusive? It's neither of those things. It's public and non-exclusive.
The other thing he was trying to do was get rid of days on the market. I don't know if he came to that agreement with Redfin on this, but I mean, my simple answer to I think I don't get it at all. I don't understand how this helps the Compass agents when I can tell my client, well, if you list with them, they'll only put your listing over on one site. Well,
yeah,
with me you go everywhere.
Yeah.
It's actually, right. I mean, from an appraiser standpoint, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep bringing the appraiser standpoint into this, but but it's also kind of confusing to me, because if you're putting it on your private stuff, you're not putting it on MLS. I mean, granted, it's a listing or whatever, but now I don't get to see your listing and see the days on market, see all this information. I have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if you're just doing it on your own stuff, I don't get to see this information. And then now later on, maybe it doesn't hit the MLS as far as a sold sale. So now that's a sale that I may not see, that may have sold in your subdivision or whatever to use as a comp, or maybe it does. But again, I like to look at everything, all the data, and see, okay, this home's been on MLS and it's been on the market for 30 days or 20 days or whatever it may be at this price, and reduce. But if that's not there for me to see, well, then now I'm struggling a little bit as an appraiser to get the appropriate data.
But surely as an appraiser, you're looking at county records and the sold data, right?
Okay, first off, county data.
You're not just relying on the MLS. Surely you're using the accuracy of your local county, right?
Oh yeah, I'm using that accuracy just as accurate as Matt Lamarce's golf game. Yep, using it day in and day out.
Yeah. I just had a big appraisal miss that caused a huge problem, so I'm not a huge fan. The guy on a multi-million-dollar deal thought he could be $50,000 cute, and just come on. Anyway,
you can always call upon me if you ever need like some kind of appraisal help or anything. You could call upon me.
I did get the seller to give in to us a little bit, so wasn't so bad. But we used it as a tool. But man, if I was on the other side, I would have been calling you. Yeah, I feel like this is a move where they've kind of lost the script. And for the record, I was anti-Compass when they were using their recruiting practices, when they were using their venture capitalist money and telling these brokerages, hey, we're going to buy you. And then they would see the top producers and then recruit away those top producers. I was like, that's not a good practice. I was anti-Compass when they did that. I was not really pro-Compass when they were just throwing money at all these teams. They weren't making any money in the marketplace either. Turns out, that's worked out for them. They're okay. But I was like, hey, this is going to really mess with your evaluation. I was pro-Compass when they said, we want to be able to let sellers market properties like they want. And if we want private exclusive inventory, and I'd like to open it up to a select number of other real estate agents, I should be able to do that. I'm fine with that. A seller should be able to market a property how they want to market. And if someone else in the arena, another brokerage or another agent, doesn't believe that's the best marketing practice, then that agent should win through marketing their business practice, through saying like, hey, there are some brokerages out there that are going to say this is the way private exclusive does it. But really that opens you up to a limited number of inventory, a limited number of buyers, and you're not going to get the full price and what you could get. And an agent should be able to say that. And there's the battle of ideas in the marketplace, and the winner of that listing wins that idea. And to me, that's fine. What I was pro Compass when Zillow came out and said, well, if Compass advertises a property off of our off the MLS and they market it publicly, then we're going to put them on our website. And that made no sense, because Zillow's complaint was we should be able to list the maximum amount of inventory so buyers have choice. And then Zillow, in the same breath, was saying we are not going to put their inventory on our website. That doesn't make sense. But they're trying to penalize somebody for their business model. And Zillow as a broker, I mean, that's a whole other situation. But this doesn't make sense to me. Partnering with Redfin in order to list your private exclusives on the Redfin website does not make sense. I'm assuming that they will keep them private exclusive and will market those properties however they want to. And then when they make them public, they'll be putting them on Redfin, but they won't go to Zillow. But I believe that once they're public, they'll go to all the other websites. They will go to realtor.com and homes.com and Redfin. And I mean, realtor.com has not said that we're going to sequester properties that have been marketed off the MLS. So I really don't understand that part of the partnership and how it's different, unless Compass is saying we're only going to put those that we marketed private exclusive on Redfin. And I believe that would be a huge mistake, because now they're really limiting the marketing when it's important for the seller to have the marketing. So that part doesn't make sense to me. And there could be that I'm not fully understanding, but that doesn't jive. Here's another article on Inman. This is an opinion piece. We normally don't cover opinion pieces, but I'm just going to quickly look through this one. It says Compass just declared independence from the MLS and took Redfin and Rocket with it. Last week, a 3-year partnership with Redfin and Rocket to display coming soon in private exclusive listings. The listings will appear on Redfin's website and some 60 million users. Although I know advanced knowledge of the partnership, I did think because of Anywhere merger that Compass would team up with a leading powerhouse like Rocket in some way to flex its muscle and disrupt the industry even further. Well, I read that really fast. I feel bad for those listening to this in 2x with that sentence, because that was a lot. One, innovation and massive exposure. There's no doubt that this was a bold move, but an innovative one. Compass already is an industry disruptor, so it decided to disrupt further. As Coldwell Banker agent under the Compass International Holdings umbrella, being able to take advantage of this is a no-brainer. It provides freedom and flexibility to offer sellers options that no longer restricted to MLS rules and regulations. That and she says they're not a fit for every seller situation. This is what I don't know how this is going to play out. This is the part. So you have all of these other companies that are now under the Compass umbrella, and they all have different MLS agreements. And I don't really understand how the private exclusives to Redfin are going to jive with their MLS. I don't, that's a lot of moving pieces that I just don't fully understand. Move over Zillow. There's no denying this move. This was in response to friction Compass is having with Zillow. While Compass isn't going to reinvent the wheel to try to build a portal, plugging into Redfin that already has buyer traffic can offer something Zillow refused to allow. Coming soon, and private listings puts Zillow on a precarious situation. Again, what's it mean, private listings? I don't understand it. Flexibility and opportunity. Flashing yellow lights, proceed with caution. Will MLS, Zillow, and other portals penalize Compass listings that appear on the Redfin portal? Will they devise a punitive system that won't allow Compass agents to do this should a seller eventually decide to transition to the MLS? Yeah, that's the part I don't know. I guess she doesn't know it either. This is what it looks like. This was posted over on LinkedIn. Compass coming soon listings now appearing on redfin.com with exposure to 60 million buyers. Prioritize placement on Redfin. No digital badge on this placement that harms sellers. No public days on market. No price drop history. No status change history. The listing agent's name, photo, brokerage appear nearly 4 times on a page. No automated home valuation. Number 1 search ranking on Google. Listing agent already receives 7 million in direct buyer inquiries. This will be available to real estate professionals across Compass. Y'all remember when Gary Keller had a partnership with Zillow, and he may still have it, but I can remember him like chewing out like, we hate Zillow. And then he creates a partnership with Zillow called My Listing, My Leads. Y'all remember that? And the My Listing, My Lead strategy was that he would, a listing agent with Keller Williams would be the only option on those websites. It wouldn't refer you to 3 other real estate agents. This is what that reminds me of. He's got a My Listing, My Lead on Redfin. This is not new, nor disruptive at all. The only thing that it could disrupt is the MLS rules that have to deal with this. I think that's the biggest disruption. But this is just My Listing, My Lead partnership. I mean, let's just call it what it is. So this is what it looks like. This is
for sale in Boston.
Let me mute her. So this was an agent that did the search, and you can see the Compass coming soon. It's a black flag at the top left, and then there's a Redfin open with a 3D walkthrough. But that Compass coming soon, and then you can see down here, here's Compass coming soon here too. And an ad for Rocket Mortgage with a baby. That's weird. But there's a lot of Compass coming soon here. All she did was type in Boston, and you see at the top of the search results, coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. Now, as a consumer, I would be a little frustrated with all the coming soons, because if I am on Redfin looking for a house, I'm not looking for something soon. I'm looking then. So I would try to find a button that would be like, exclude the coming soons. Just show me the properties that are on the market now. So they're saying it's going to be a better user experience, but I don't think that's a better user experience to offer properties that they can't actually purchase. Now, maybe you can purchase them. They're not actually coming soon. Then why is it called coming soon? You just call them Compass. Here's the Compass properties. So I don't understand. And I think they've lost the script. They're jumping the shark. They're losing the main reason of why they were trying to do all this. And it just doesn't make sense. So as a real estate agent now, and I'm trying to search for properties for my clients, it's pretty simple. You can just go to Redfin and search for the same search and then see those properties and ask to go show them. I believe that if you, as a real estate agent, ask another agent who's marketing a property publicly to go see it, they gotta let you in. They gotta show it. If they don't, that's an ethics violation. So I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding of the situation. Just to let you know, here's Aaron McPherson, media executive, founder, and CEO, says, congratulations. As someone who's bought with Compass and is now selling a property through Compass, I could say that Zillow's estimates do affect the perception of listings value, which is not always properly captured by Redfin. And the listing history, which including taking a property off the market and price drops and misses important context around the history of a listing. This partnership takes advantage of the reach. David Hadaway says, maybe from a seller's perspective, I struggle to see any downside. If my home can circulate in a private network first, potentially create some scarcity, help validate pricing, and then go to the MLS with 0 days on market, sounds like a valuable option to me.
Hey, Ray, I just want to say something here.
Yeah.
Because you brought it up a couple times about Zillow and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Redfin. I'm going to tell you, like, as an appraiser, I search all these sites and just kind of get an idea of what each one says and kind of see what their parameters are. Are they including basement square footage, this, that, and everything else, and they all differ,
Yeah.
and everything. But I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to lie. At least in my area, Redfin's a little more accurate in what they do as far as information wise, and even their values are not. They're still off, but they're not as far off as a Zillow. I've seen Zillow, and we've all seen it, where Zillow's been like extremely inflated and everything. Now I'm starting to see, especially in my area, where Zillow is is now below what the actual market value of a home is. And then I see Realtor.com, which is like just some random number out there. And then I see Redfin, and Redfin's actually been, not accurate, but it's been a lot closer in their algorithm than Zillow has been. So it's kind of weird to see this whole thing. So maybe they have some better data that they're going off of. So I don't know if they have better data or not, but I definitely think Redfin kind of is gaining an advantage with everything that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I like their news, but I've only had a couple of clients try to use their website, and feedback on that was pretty good. They liked the website. I don't have a problem with additional portals. I wish there was still one unified place for people to go that was not attached to a portal. But the weird part to me is, and I get there's a misnomer out there, and sellers of properties also are not thinking about this, but Zillow and Redfin, they don't really care if the valuation is accurate. If it was an accurate valuation, then they would actually not be doing their job. Zillow's job and Redfin's job is to get you, the consumer, to ask, is this accurate? And if you're asking the question, they've done their job, because then now a lead goes to a real estate agent. So why should they improve the accuracy of the data when it being wrong almost initiates more of the question? How's this property worth $1 million? Or why is it this property $5 million like it says it's worth, or whatever? Those questions are what initiates the conversation. And that's the job. That's the business model of Redfin, Zillow, and those homes.com type websites. If they were to just give you the data, then it's antithetical to how they make money. So they're not trying to be accurate. And I try to, help my clients understand this. They're not trying to be accurate. They're trying to get you to ask the question. If there was an analytic or piece of data that Zillow's headquarters got that said, by showing a home price 13% below what the actual home value is, it increases the number of click-throughs for people to check the value of their home by 56% versus it being 12% below. What do you think they're going to do? It's going to be 13% below on almost everything, because their job is to make money for the shareholders. The way they make money for the shareholders is by selling leads to agents, either monthly or through a referral rate. Their job is not, we're going to give you the best data and information possible. That, in my opinion, should be the job of NAR/Realtor.com. And they should be speaking publicly about this. Why aren't they saying, like, hey, we're the only website that's not really concerned with the lead going anywhere. We're actually wanting you to have the information and for you to call a realtor. That'd be great. That'd be great messaging. Bennett, if you're watching, that'd be great. Okay. Home Services has responded to this. Let me share this tab instead. Home Services CEO on private listings, quote, tell me how this is putting consumers first. Chris Kelly weighed in. Home Services of America, Chris Kelly, compared the fragmentation of private real estate listings to the streaming industry's multiple platforms, questioning its benefit. Kelly criticized the private listing trend. this is what they say. All of us were extremely excited to cut the cable cord. Remember when you finally did it? You probably told your friend or family, "I finally cut the cable." Then you now have Apple TV, Disney Plus, Netflix, Paramount, all the rest of them, Peacock. How many of them are you subscribed to now? Couldn't someone just bundle these together in one place? Have any of you felt that? I know I have. I have actually hated all the streaming networks. At first, I thought I would really like it. But I just wanted one more thing. I didn't want all these things. There was one thing I wanted to subscribe to that I could not subscribe to through cable. It's like, if I could just get that one thing, I'd be all set. And then I'd keep everything through the cable. And now everything's separate. Stupid. The comments came amid a broker debate among private listings, most notably Compass and others as well, have worked in recent years to build networks of listings that do not immediately appear on the multiple listing service. Kelly painted a negative picture of the future dominated by private listings, saying, quote, "Now I have to go to 12 different places to watch the shows I want or see the listings that I think may be for sale. Tell me how this is putting the consumer first or how that's a better experience." I mean, the way it's a better experience is because you're doing what the seller wants you to do. That's the only way that it's a better experience, is if the seller is signing up for that, saying, "I want private listings." But also, what Compass is trying to do, what my understanding of what they're trying to do, is that they're trying to make the private listings available to everyone. In a scenario where you, quote, have to go to multiple places in order to find listings, that's what you currently have through the cooperative agreement, whatever it's called. I can't even think of what it's called now. What is it? It's not a collaboration or cooperative agreement, but that's what's in my head. A clear cooperation. That's what I'm trying to think of. Wow. I've said that so much that it slipped my brain. What you currently have with the clear cooperation agreement is the division that is now on cable and streaming networks, where if I want to know the properties that Caldwell has, then I have to go to Caldwell. If I want to know the properties that Keller has, I have to go to Keller. If I want to know the properties that, we have, you have to come to me. I just signed a pocket listing yesterday. So it's a private listing no one else has access to. And the reason why is because they're not ready to put it on the market and activate it yet. But as soon as they are, it'll be public. But if I sell it before then, great. So what's the problem, right? That's what the seller wanted. What Compass is trying to do is say, hey, we have these private listings. We would like to open them up to other brokerages. So as a consumer, you don't have to go to all the other brokerages. You just have to find the right agent that's plugged in to the various parts. That is your one place as a consumer. So as an agent, you might cry about it, and it might be more difficult because I have to go and see what Century 21 has and what these people have on these private listing networks. You could cry about it as a real estate agent, but you are the conduit. You are the cable that then reaches everyone else. And that's what Compass is trying to do. What they're not trying to do is just keep them private within the brokerage, because they can currently do that with no problems. So I don't understand her take, because what she is preaching out against is what we are able to do with clear cooperation. So I assume Chris Kelly, isn't that a she? Maybe not. I assume Chris Kelly is pro. I guess they're anti clear cooperation. If they're not anti clear cooperation, then they should be, because that's what they're speaking out against. And that's why I don't get it. NAR made a statement. Knowing everything I know now about NAR and their statement, let's read this. NAR reaffirms MLS discretion following Compass Redfin announcement. The association emphasizes that brokers and agents who choose to participate in an MLS agree to comply with the policies and rules. The National Association reaffirmed that multiple listing service MLS has discretion to set their own rules and policies regarding listing statuses following the late February announcement that Compass will market its coming soon status as private listings on Redfin. NAR respects the rights of individual brokers to make their own business decisions and not comment on specific brokerage practices or business models. NAR does not have a national policy regarding coming soon statuses. Listing statuses are matters of local discretion, with each MLS determining the appropriate status for its marketing. Brokers and agents who agree to participate in the MLS agree to comply with the MLS's rules and policies are designed to benefit customers in their marketplace. So this is a huge difference from previous statements from NAR. What they're saying is like, hey, you guys figure it out. That doesn't really concern us. And they are right to take this stance, because if they don't take this stance, they will be sued. And they will be in the lawsuit. So as it stands today, because they're saying, well, you agreed to get into the MLS, so if you want to sue the MLS later because you didn't like what they did, then that's between you and the MLS. If the MLS wants to come after you, then that's between you and the MLS. If the consumer wants to come after you, that's between you and the consumer. This is your deal with them. So that's a very risk-averse statement from NAR. And it makes sense that they would take that stance now. I think you'll see more distance put between NAR and the MLSs moving forward. All right, so we're going to get into the lightning round of economic news. I'm going to share this tab, and we will go pretty quick. Scap said, if I could just have T-Wire on my TV every day, all day, I'll be saving a lot of money. Heck yeah, man. All right, lightning round. February home sales see small rebound, but supply growth is sluggish. Yeah. So existing home sales in February rose 1.7% from January. The quote from Lawrence Yun. Despite the modest gain in home sales, actual housing demand remains muted relative to wage growth and job gains. Oh, that was one of the questions I asked Lawrence while we were there, Mr. Yoon. I said, why aren't people taking into account the wage growth very much? And he said, because of all the other economic factors are kind of leveling it out, basically. So wage growth is now outpacing home price growth by almost 4 percentage points. Mortgage points are also measurably lower compared to a year ago. You noted there are over 6 million more jobs now than there were in 2019, yet home sales per year are down by 1 million. This gets into his philosophy of why he thinks home sales are going to go up 14%. But it's cool to see the question that I asked about wage growth. And then today, a week later, he mentions wage growth. Yeah. Home sales perk up as housing affordability improves. Existing home sales rose slightly last month as lower mortgage rates, slower price increases helped better position buyers. Existing home sales, yeah, that's that 1.7 number. Look, they have a video now from, I did not meet her, but they have a video now from trying to communicate, trying to get better on communicating. Existing home sales rose 1.7%. It's all kind of the same. This is an interesting one. Back on market relistings jump as home sellers bet on stronger spring market. So a bunch more listings are coming back on the market. Home relistings are on the rise, and the relistings as a share of active listings are on the rise, but it's still only 4%. So it's 44,000, almost 45,000. Yep, that's the same one. Relistings. I do research multiple articles for the show, so that's why you see sometimes on my tab. So I'm going lightning round like this. It's your browser has lost connection to the audio. Uh-oh. Can y'all still hear me? Browser.
Yes.
Okay. Why does it say my browser has lost connection to audio? Let me check audio.
Because you're on a marathon pod today, man.
Yeah,
It's like almost 3 o'clock.
I guess so.
That's really not the answer. I just thought I'd throw that in.
That's weird.
And
yeah,
Matt Lamarche is taking a nap, by the way. He's got to be.
I don't know where he is. He's missing it. Oh, well, I know you guys in Clubhouse can hear me, but can the YouTubers hear me? Is some 1G still there, or new user 5877, or what's it worth appraisals? Scap, are you out there? Can y'all hear on YouTube?
Or NAR 512. Are you still there?
NAR. Yeah. Okay. Rick's there. He says yes. All right. Sorry. I got a warning.
And on YouTube.
He's got like everything going on. I can hear it in the background. Thanks, Scap. All right. I was just checking because yep, I hear you. Okay. Thank you, Hillary. StreamYard was like, you've lost audio connection. So I just wanted to double check before I kept going and speaking into the abyss. All right. So house hunters stand on the sidelines as rate dip below 6% in the Iran war adds to market uncertainty. I mean, drop it in the comments. How many of you avoided purchasing a home because of the Iran war? It's just a low number. The biggest impact that the Iran war has had so far was the increase in gas prices. And if you're over in California, you're like, man, gas is already up to $8 or $9. It's still like $3 in Arkansas. So maybe you should also take some of that up with your state and local authorities. More homeowners have a rate above 6% than a rate below 3% for the first time in 5 years. So that's significant. That means more people would be willing to sell if they're sitting in a 6%, but that also means that they recently purchased. Yeah, it's a cool graphic that they have. That's one of my favorite, the U.S. mortgage rate. Let me make it big so you guys can see it. There it is. So you can see the below 3%. It's that very top purple. And there's not many. Not many left. All right, typical U.S. homeowner hangs on to their house for 12 years. In Los Angeles, it's 20 years. The homeowner tenure peaked at 13.4 years in 2020, roughly doubling the average tenure from 2005, and then it declined marginally for 4 years before ticking up in 2025. One of the things that used to strike me, and I would say this a lot in 2006 and 7 when I got started in real estate, is that it seemed like people were moving every 3 years. And then when the crash happened, they just stopped moving. Previously, before that, people were living in their house for 10 to 15 years. So we went through a period where people were selling fast because they could sell fast. And now we're back in a period where people are holding on to their homes longer. 12 years seems long, though. Every time I ask somebody, like, how long do you think people stay in their home? Most people say 5 years, but the number is currently 12. There's a big fraud scheme. We won't get into it today, but Miami developer accused of an $85 million fraud scheme, blowing investor cash on a yacht and a Rolex. Dun, dun, dun. Federal indictment unsealed Friday charged Florida real estate developer with orchestrating an $85 million fraud scheme, failing to pay millions of taxes and lying to the financial institutions to purchase a luxury yacht. Rishi Kapoor, 41 of Miami, was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit offenses against the defund the U.S., failure to pay payroll tax, tax evasion, and failure to file tax returns and bank fraud. That's a lot. So keep your eye on it. We'll see what happens. And then the last one, this is a weird one. Portland tries a new affordable housing fix, pay homeowners to rent spare bedrooms. What? Portland, Oregon is experimenting with a new strategy to expand housing supply by paying homeowners to rent out their spare bedrooms. The city recently launched a 12-month home sharing pilot program, offering financial incentives to homeowners who rent unused rooms through the approved home sharing providers such as Pad Split. Officials hope the program will unlock underutilized housing space while providing more affordable options for renters. Under the program, homeowners can receive $1,000 for renting out their first spare bedroom and $500 for each additional bedroom, with payments issued after the room has been successfully rented for 30 days. So, I mean, this is going to be abused. I mean, how many people are going to rent a room to their kid now? 100%. 100% of people with 18-year-olds are going to be renting that room out to their kid for 30 days at least to get the $1,000 to $500 payments. I hope they said that, like, no relation, you can't have a relative, because all the multifamily housing right now that is already in place. But I don't know. We'll have to check in on this and see how it goes. But there you go. That's all I got today, y'all. Fake walls and more. Yeah. Pad Split. No. Do you know of Pad Split? Is that a thing in Hotlanta?
Oh my God, Ray. Pad Split's like crazy going on here. And it's
Really?
like, yeah, it's a really, I mean, it's a good concept, but I'm not sure your insurance company and anything else is going to work with it. Like they're buying these single family homes, and then they put up these temporary walls that are like, I mean, I'm sorry, it's like being in a jail cell. I've tried to appraise 2 of these, and you're like in a jail cell where it's like an 8x8 room with a window. Some of them don't even have windows, and they put these fake walls up, and they rent the rooms out by the week or by the month. I mean, it's
not good.
crazy. But here's the thing: is there was a big thing here in Georgia that happened with this pad split company where the city of Decatur actually banned it and was going. They had a big lawsuit about it. I'll send you the info on it and everything, but. Pad split, you better make sure you're in the right zoning or whatnot, because they're packing 4, 5, 6 people into this little shotgun 1,100 square foot home with 1 kitchen, 1 bathroom, and they're putting up these temporary walls, and then they're renting them out, but that's probably not legal per your zoning.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So one of the ones I just did one last week where they had this pad split, and I had to explain to the homeowner that was going to sell this property. I said, bro, I'm like, your home is literally a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. And he says, well, I've got 4 bedrooms in there. I'm like, yeah, and I can kick down that wall with 1 little karate chop. Boom, done. And now we're back to the basics. So I had to explain it and everything. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with these pad split things. So be careful.
I could just see Scap becoming the Kool-Aid man. Hey,
is calling people bro really that professional? Scap?
Bro. these days, yeah, it's a term of endearment.
Okay, first off, I'm on a podcast called T-Wire with beard. So I think bro is pretty appropriate right
now. That's funny.
This week in real estate and appraising.
Yeah, that's what it should be, actually. Let's change it. Well, that's all I've got for this week, guys. Thank you for going along with me. I know it was a longer pod than normal. If you have any questions for NAR, pose them in the comments. Drop it in the comments, because I do know they are listening. They're listening to the podcast, believe it or not. So the stuff you guys are saying, they're actually taking as feedback. So very interesting. But put it in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear how you would have been more critical, or maybe if you have some deep appreciation for NAR, you could drop that too. They probably don't hear the good things enough. But be sure to follow me on Instagram. It's Ray Zorback, RayZorback. And thank you to all of the audio listeners and the podcast downloads. I know there's a ton of you guys out there that don't get to hear the show live, so I do want you to know I appreciate y'all too. Y'all are part of those numbers that I think they look at to say, like, hey, this guy does have an audience. Maybe we should have him up. So hopefully I'll get to go again. It was a good experience. I loved meeting some of the other podcasters and people in the industry. So that was really cool. But thanks again for listening. Thanks for being part of the audience and making this show what it is. So that's all I got, guys. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.